My name is Jill Pais. I'm the Water Quality Services Manager for Fort Collins Utilities. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to talk about an important partnership that we have between the utilities and the Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed, or CPRW. This partnership really helps support many of the objectives that utilities has around source water protection by leveraging resources and implementing projects on the ground aimed at reducing wildfire risks within our watersheds and helping us reduce some of the potential impacts to our water supplies. And so tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Jennifer Kovexis. Jen is the Executive Director of CPRW, and she is going to talk a little bit about CPRW as an organization and touch on some of the highlights and accomplishments that we've achieved through this partnership.
As Jill mentioned, my name is Jen Kovexis. I'm the Executive Director with CPRW, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the work that we've done over the past 5 years since we formed. Our mission is to improve and maintain the ecological health of the Poudre River Watershed through community collaboration, and we got our start after the High Park fire. The City of Fort Collins and several other entities, other local governments, nonprofits, and agencies came together to really address some of the critical post-fire impacts so that we could prioritize the most important long-term negative outcomes from that event. I don't need to go into too much detail with all of you about the types of problems that we saw, the sedimentation, flooding, and debris flows that affected our river and put our water supplies at risk. We worked and still work extensively on doing post-fire restoration, and we do that not just because it puts our water supplies at risk, but also because it puts other high-value ecosystem services that the Poudre provides at risk as well. The Poudre supports a $3 to $4 million recreational fishing industry in Larimer County. It helps support a $1 million whitewater rafting industry, a large and vibrant agricultural industry. Catastrophic wildfires like the High Park fire put all of that at risk. And we really believe at CPRW that maintaining and protecting a healthy watershed helps to support and maintain healthy and vibrant communities. And that's one of our driving values for the work that we do. Now, the High Park fire was a dramatic and big event in our watershed and for our communities, but at the end of the day, it actually represented only or impacted only about 10 to 12% of our watershed. That leaves a whole lot of acres to burn in the future. And so CPRW brought together a whole host of stakeholders and partners to start planning and prioritizing in our watershed where we should be focusing our efforts to protect high-value watershed services like water supply and river health. So what you see on the screen here is the outcome of multiple years of scientific analysis and collaborative planning. Those red and orange areas represent the areas in the watershed that our science and data and consultation indicated were the highest areas of need for doing wildfire mitigation and other watershed protection work. Those circle dot areas just represent some of the areas where we've been focusing on in terms of implementation. It's important for us that we don't just plan for the sake of planning, that we move our plans as quickly as possible to implementation. So we've been very active on that front. So just to give you a sense of where our work has happened, as I mentioned, our work really has been focused since the beginning on post-fire restoration. So these are just highlighting a few of our key post-fire restoration projects that we've done across different burn areas for the High Park fire and the Hewlett Gulch fire. And really, these projects have been focused on trying to abate the potential for excessive sediment entering into the Poudre. And we've worked in cooperation with multiple partners, whether land management agencies or entities like City of Fort Collins, either to plan, implement, or leverage funds to make that work happen. Our wildfire mitigation work, as I mentioned, have been focused in two very different areas of the watershed to reduce wildfire risk there. It's an obvious choice for why we should be doing wildfire mitigation around that high-value, critical water supply infrastructure. And we've worked very closely with City of Fort Collins to leverage additional funds, match funds that the City of Fort Collins to raise additional grant funds to make more mitigation happen. In the Elkhorn Creek watershed, which is a tributary to the main stem of the Poudre, it enters the Poudre about a mile upstream from Stove Prairie Road. We've been working with many partners as well, getting work done on the ground across multiple land ownerships to increase the amount of implementation that's happening in that watershed as well. We're really proud of the work that we've done, but we're also strive very hard to make sure that we measure the impacts that we have on the ground. So we know that we've statistically reduced fuel loads in those project areas, and that not just have increased measurable changes on the ground, but we've also brought additional benefits through outreach, community outreach, and engagement. In addition to being or having watershed stewardship as a core value, we're also really key or like to focus on valuing financial stewardship in our organization. And with that in mind, we're really careful about the dollars that are invested in us by group entities like City of Fort Collins. And based on all of the work that we've done over the past 5 years, we know that for every dollar City of Fort Collins and other local governments have invested in us, we've brought $5 more back into the watershed for capacity building, planning, and project implementation. I'll just skip that last slide and just let you know where we're going right now. We are building a citizen science water quality monitoring program, and we're building on the river health assessment program that the City of Fort Collins did for the middle portion of the river. And so we're really excited about what the future will bring to us and for the watershed and the rest of the work that we'll be able to do. And I would just encourage you, if you're interested in this kind of work, I'm here to answer any questions you might have now, but you can keep track of the work that we're doing. We do lots of tours in the watershed. We're on social media. We have an e-newsletter, and you can go check out our website to see what work we've been doing.